Hey everybody, it's Caleb, and this is Delta Green Dead Channels, where occasionally, owing to a groundswell of support from lovely patrons, I steal time away from my employers and force them to answer your questions in a sort of Saw-like game where they can just see me on the webcam giving orders that you give them. So watch them dance like the puppets they are, and we'll find out what the people at ASIL are doing nowadays. You guys want to introduce yourselves first? Not that I think it's required, but just because that's what is demanded of you.
Sure, yeah. So my name is Shane Ivey, and I co-run Arc Dream Publishing, and am sort of the lead publisher on all of the new Delta Green material. So if you look at the mastheads, where people put publisher, meaning they do all the producer shit and don't get any credit for it, but they can also scope money off the top. That's what I do.
It's good to know your place.
Yeah.
No, I
edit and write and do page design and occasionally have to brag about myself because otherwise Dennis, coming from New York, teases me and makes me feel bad.
I have no idea what you're talking about. He's never done that.
Listen
to me.
Okay.
Yeah.
First off, Shane lived in New York long enough to know that is the only responsible way to live. One, you need to defend yourself at all times. That is just how it goes.
I was telling my daughter the other day when we were driving down to Victoria. So I don't know. She made some comment about people are driving crazy, and I told her that when I lived in New York, the first 2 weeks we lived in New York, I still had a car, and in that time I learned that the lessons that they all teach you in driving school is to drive defensively, to be careful, and if you're driving in New York, you have to learn to drive offensively. Because otherwise you'll never get anywhere. You just drive like, you know what, I'm going to be in that lane where that guy is right now, and if he doesn't move, fuck him.
Yeah, that's why you see so many beaters in New York. They're just like, it's a demolition derby and stuff.
Oh yeah. No, I moved up with a really nice car. It was like, I mean, it's a totally extinct car now, Ford Talon or something like that.
It's also how Dennis operates his Twitter account.
See, but yeah,
this
like when
ethos,
I hired a dude to load it onto a trailer, and drive it out after it'd been there for 2 weeks, and I realized that was ludicrous to have a car. And he's like, you must have moved in from out of town. I said, well, oh yeah, sure. How you tell? Well, it's not all dinged up and beat to shit.
Well, that's a way to get your bodies out of your New York City game, is just load them in the trunk of a confused out-of-towner's car, ship them out of the city. Yeah.
So I'm Dennis. I'm the other guy at Arc Dream. I'm from New York, but I live in Canada now, which is a big adjustment. But I do a lot of the writing, a lot of the creative stuff with Shane. All the art and art direction, and that's about it.
Cool. Well, people have screamed questions at you, and I am but their mouthpiece. So, Boone has asked, besides True Detective, what recent media property do you think is the most Delta Green? What currently has the title?
For me, Sicario is the closest to Delta Green. I will say, and this is going to piss a lot of people off, True Detective, I loved it. It's a giant piece of shit, however, because it is completely stolen. If you remove all the good bits of True Detective, which are actually from a book called Conspiracy Against the Human Race, which is by Thomas Ligotti, which is fantastic. If you remove it, it becomes a crappy police procedural. If all that stuff, if everything Cole said was gone, it would just be another HBO show like, oh, well, someone got murdered, let's all move on. So that pisses me off. So that makes me really mad. And I loved the show, and I was totally bought into it. I thought it was amazing. And oh my God, and it's the closest thing to Delta Green. But fuck it, because that guy's a dick and he stole everything good from that show.
I openly admit to stealing from Thomas Ligotti. Unlike
Right.
Nick
Well, you've got. I mean,
so.
that's fine. Like if you know, if they had a piece of dialogue where Cole had said, "I was reading in this book by Thomas Ligotti," that probably would have changed a lot of. And it's like, okay, at least own your shit. We all steal, but don't pretend you did.
This wasn't stealing. This is like,
copy and paste. Right.
I wrote something. It's called Claire de Lune. I think it's pretty good. Wait a minute.
Yeah.
So
and you can kind of tell because of course the next seasons of True Detective where he couldn't get away with stealing from other more eloquent writers, and he didn't have a super talented director acting as co-showrunner for all episodes. They were just kind of mediocre police procedurals.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. So I will say Sicario for me is probably the closest in creep and dread factor, particularly the opening sequence with, if you haven't seen it, and just the procedural elements and the using of characters and their kind of impact on lives and things like that would be high level Delta Green for me.
I did a Wikipedia search and realized that like all of my favorite Hollywood things in the last 5 years have all been by the same writer and director, which is Taylor Sheridan, who wrote Sicario. And so if you look at like Wind River, for instance, it's not really. It's not. It's, I mean, it's more. It's
quite a bit too. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's not a Delta Green thing, but it's sort of adjacent. And
right.
He's got a real sense of kind of Western style action, combined with the world is fucked and hates everyone. I mean, he said explicitly, like as a filmmaker, his main influences are Larry McMurtry and Cormac McCarthy. And I'm like, oh, that's my man. Mm-hmm. That guy can sleep at my house anytime.
In my bed with me. We can even spoon. Cormac.
We will talk about that, but the conversation will be very kind of low tone and sinister, and PTSD ridden.
Yeah, and then you realize human connection's fleeting, and what's the point anyway? And
right. Then we'll both sort of stare off into space, waiting for the fade out.
So before I get too lost, the other things I will recommend are there's a movie called Absentia, which is a horror missing persons low budget movie, which is fantastic, and that is very Delta Green. And then
is that the one with Chris? That's not the one with the
No One You Know.
With what's her name from Spider-Man?
Oh God, no. It's practically shot. It's practically shot on a phone. Yeah, it is very low budget. Yeah, but very good. Yeah.
Yeah, it is a fantastic film. The other two I will mention are by the same director, and these are for emotional cues and violent interactions. Green Room and Blue Ruin. Same director. Both movies kick you in the crotch repeatedly with the interpersonal relationships and violence for real people, as opposed to the action movie leaping through windows, machine gun battles. This is much more like, suddenly he produces a hunting bow. No one knows what to do. You run down the front steps and hear the bow bounce off the ground. It's you want, for Delta Green, you want a feeling of hurried, near pointless and random violence. Nothing is ever pre-calculated to the point where everything works out the way you imagined. You don't snipe a guy from 200 yards. You literally run into him in the elevator at the hotel you're staying at, and suddenly guns come out, and one of you is dead in 15 seconds. and now you have
somebody else is like, what happened to your plan to snipe him from 200 yards?
Yeah.
We worked on this for hours.
Yeah, totally. So that kind of film is very interesting to me, and the closest to the emotional punch that I want in Delta Green.
All right. Zim asks, how many other countries have parallel programs?
All the countries we've listed, pretty much. The Great Cleanse is World War II. So many countries had programs that delved into certain things, and then they were subsumed by two countries, the United States and the Soviet Union.
So the consolidation in the Cold War has not yet diversified national unnatural stores. Yeah.
Japan doesn't go, well, we hid while the Americans completely replaced our entire incipient culture with everything American. It got scoured away. But saying that, there are probably a lot of really small, weird programs that believe they're investigating one strange phenomenon like EVP, or we have evidence that consciousness lives on after death, and blah blah blah. And it becomes a very small intelligence program, say in the French intelligence directorate or something like that. Much less, oh, by the way, there were plastic immortal beings raised at the beginning of time that gave birth to all life on Earth, and then warred with things the size of mountains that boiled down from the stars. That's more Delta Green and more the Russian program. Everybody else is kind of like, yeah, if you put lights like this as per the Native American culture in Canada, sometimes weird things come down and buzz at you from the dark.
And that's the universal solvent of the supernatural for them, because that's the thing that they've discovered. Yeah.
Even Delta Green doesn't understand. This is another huge misapprehension I see a ton. Is like the director then said, "Let's go get the Migo." Like that would never happen, because he doesn't even know what a fucking Migo is.
Yeah.
If you show him pictures of a Deep One and a Shuggoth and a Migo, it's like it's all the same thing to him.
Mm-hmm.
It's all Deep Ones to him.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's that shit.
Those fuckers underwater. Those are flying fuckers underwater.
Yeah.
So Friedrich also asked, if you had to create another conspiracy version of Delta Green in another country or time, what would it be? So I assume that would be overly focused on a minuscule dot of the quote unquote mythos and confusing it for the entirety of the unnatural.
Oh yeah. I mean, the thing to remember is that so in the books, we always talk about we use the words Delta Green as a shorthand for all the shit going on around the player characters, but that leads and that simplifies things for everybody, but at the same time it makes it easy for readers who aren't us to interpret that as meaning that the organization Delta Green knows everything about the unnatural, because Delta Green, the organization, has been fighting the natural for decades and decades. And the thing that's missing there is that there are no human beings who are the entirety of the organization called Delta Green. Even the people that are in charge of it right now don't know everything that Delta Green as a group has been doing. Right, all these years. They don't know what it's encountered. They don't know. It's like all these individual tiny little events that have been popping up and members of Delta Green have dealt with over time. So even when you're dealing with Delta Green, it's going to help immensely to remember that people know fuck all about what they're doing and what they're dealing with. And if you're doing another conspiracy, then remember that, and then amplify that by a factor of about 10, because they don't even have the minimal institutional memory that Delta Green has.
Yeah. Fair enough. The Broken Clock has asked, do you have any major non-fiction influences and inspirations in the writing of Delta Green?
All of them. I mean, it's kind of hard. Like,
I use that Strat4 vocabulary a lot.
Yeah, I mean, we put most of the best 5 years ago in the back of the Agent's Handbook. There's a lot by Annie Jacobson,
excluding the ice description.
Yeah. Well, that was 5 years ago.
Which fate changed on you? Yeah,
exactly.
That wasn't us. That was
Yeah.
No, the big one I will cite forever is The Making of the Atomic Bomb by Richard Rhodes. Is a great cross section of the entirety of the atomic bomb project, Manhattan Project, from the dimmest beginnings to the end. And it's a vision of a conspiracy and multiple conspiracies within a federal government that illustrates just how fucked up and compartmentalized and weird some of the thinking becomes in these places. The guys, for example, harvesting uranium had zero idea what was really going on in much of the project. They didn't even know what they were really doing these things for. A lot of them had no idea they were even harvesting uranium. So reading that book, which is it's a huge fucking book. It's like a Bible. Is a fantastic cross view of like, now imagine the unnatural in that. And just take it through all these bizarre little changes where it begins as a freaking letter to the president, and it ends as the single largest expenditure of resources ever on the planet for any reason, with 1 billion different departments that have no idea what the fuck's going on. That's when I look at that book, I think the Delta Green, if you wrote the Delta Green book, it would look like Richard Rhodes' book. And you'd end up 50 pages into section 3 going, what the fuck am I reading? Like, what is even happening here? Because even when there's a clear goal, it doesn't make any sense. And at the end, you're kind of amazed that things worked out. Did you know that they welded the bomb to the deck of a destroyer and sailed it to Wake Island and almost lost the ship? I didn't know that.
Nobody's supposed to know that. Yeah. I mean, all of I just started reading an Annie Jacobson book called Area 51, and at the very beginning of that, because she's not writing conspiracy theory, she's writing about conspiracy theory, and at the very beginning of that starts off by establishing that everything that we think of as UFO conspiracies, as Area 51 conspiracies, all of that, it all has its roots in the bomb. It all has its roots in the Manhattan Project, which became the Atomic Energy Commission, which became the Department of Energy. The SCI, Secure Compartmentalized Information Classification Program, special access programs, all of these things where they started with, okay, we can make things top secret, but how do we make it even topper secret? Came about because of the development of the bomb and the desperation to keep the further development of the bomb secret. So, why was Area 51 such a fucking black hole? Why were they so crazy about security there? It wasn't because of the planes. It was because that's where fucking bomb research was happening. And they also did planes nearby, right? And they launched the Blackbird and the Aurora, and they did all kinds of shit that.
You don't think Tom DeLonge has made first contact, Shane?
he's made contact with his own dick
and in the sky, and he found
with a
life,
lot of.
All right,
he's made contact with himself and with lots of Rude's money. So way to go, Tom DeLonge.
I had a wonderful conversation with an aviation professional who was sure that disclosure is happening, where I basically said in 1963, if an SR-71 Blackbird shot past at Mach 3.8 of a pilot in a starfighter, would they think that's a UFO, or would they think, oh well, that's just classified? A classified jet. They see a wedge shoot by at 5,000 meters a second or whatever the fuck it is.
Shit that's not physically possible according to all the current science.
Right. But I took it even further. I said, okay, you just lost. It's 1947. You've lost nuclear technology to Soviet spies. They already knew that the Soviet spies had infiltrated the entire British operation and had gained access to, atomic secrets. It was only a matter of time before the Soviets had it. And a year later, you invent anti-gravity. How do you cover that up? how do you make sure that's not nuke number 2? The answer is you make it outside yourself, and then you go, oh wait, no, that's not us.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, a ship crashed at Roswell. Oh no, wait, no, it didn't. We don't have alien technology. You set up an entirely dummy department that the Soviets investigate, where it's a disk and bodies, but you have anti-grav tech going on somewhere else, somewhere safe that you could use. And now it's getting out. So how do you cover up? You have drones flying over China, taking pictures and moving at right angles, 38,000 miles an hour. Well, the answer is you just pretend they're alien, and then you start disclosing things, and you start charging money for it. It's awesome. It covers all the bases. It's such bullshit, and it really is. That Mirage Men documentary is the closest I've seen to actually telling you what's going on, and it's literally an intelligence agent saying the government told me to lie to people about aliens so that we could get particular psychological responses from the public and cause them to do things.
Mm-hmm.
And that sounds the most compelling, most believable, like right now. It's certainly not.
Yeah.
It's coming tomorrow. They're going to land in right field. And
Well, I would suggest reading anything about Gladio, because it's like all of that, but it didn't work, and it's still fucked up, and no one knows what happened. So that's what I like to think of in Delta Green. You want some people who are very, very undertrained for their job, behaving terribly and trying to get away with it, but then not really mattering when they don't get away with it. That's Delta Green, and that's Gladio or COINTELPRO or anything else that the CIA has ever touched.
Yeah. I mean, everybody's swimming in bullshit that everybody else is putting out. You know, the Delta Green itself and our fictionalized thing. You know, just like the nuclear programs in the U.S. is constantly putting out disinformation and constantly filling the airwaves with bullshit in order to distract from the leaks that do occasionally happen.
Yeah. I had I had a guy email me. Oh, they leaked a video of the King in Yellow to YouTube, like showing a picture of the king lurching up the street and the world shifting around him. What happens? And I was like, Delta Green goes on and posts 24 generated videos that look just like that with similar names, and says, one is a confessed hoax. One is, I did this. I made this in Blender. Check it out.
They file a DMCA takedown, and YouTube auto flags it with a bot, and it never goes on there again.
Totally, that totally works. But the bigger issue is what disclosure kind of comes closer to Delta Green is, what if this shit is happening? What if there are wonderful little floating silver boxes that appear and move at 40,000 miles an hour at right angle? How is that any different than the unnatural? What if you can't understand it? What if we're bears looking at a lightning strike? We're like, wow, that's fucking amazing, and it blew a tree up and it's on fire. What if we can never understand it? And that's it. That's a position I could see the U.S. government take. Guess what? We spent 40 years studying this. We still don't know what the fuck it is. We can't catch them. We can't shoot them down. They're over our airspace. They outmaneuver our planes, but we don't even really understand what they are. Therefore, we will not release this information because that would make us look weak.
Yeah, they made that give up decision. It's called NASA funding. They've been doing it every year for decades. Yeah.
I mean, and even worse from their perspective, if you admit that it's real, then somebody smarter might figure it out.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah, totally. So, when I look at this disclosure shit, it just makes me giggle. And I'm constantly engaging with people on Twitter. Oh, you don't know. And I've been called a disinformation agent dozens of times this year.
Well, you're counterintelligence for the Canadian government. We know that. They're the tendrils of the maple leaf are long. Yeah. And they
did you see recently there was a headline? It was a big news headline up here anyway. I'm in Canada too, but in case you hadn't pieced it together yet, the implications. But there was a recent big headline where the Canadian government is investigating whether they should whether they should finally establish their own espionage agency. You know, because
You guys read that article in National Review, or what was it? It might have been Telegraph. I can't remember, but the guy just followed around a dude who was supposedly, like, basically a guy admitted or claimed to be basically the part of Tom Clancy's division, like a group of sleeper cell agents. And the guy followed him around all day, and it's a journalist for the Telegraph or National Review. So he could have just been some strange weirdo, or he could have been an actual agent pretending to be that. But apparently all they do is just ship each other disclosed packages, like they just parcel serve. It's like the article's literally like, I hung out with a character of Tom and Pension's Crying of Lot 49 for a day, and here's what we did. And like, I can't even imagine what that op is meant to disguise. Like, yeah.
Oh, I can tell you what that is. That is shipping shit across the border in some way that's remotely affordable. That's entirely so.
It's just a bunch of underground RPG publishers. Like,
yeah, Caleb's laughing so hard that blood is coming out of his eyeballs right now. In case you're not seeing video, because he feels the pain of RPG shipping.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. No, I mean, you know, if
it might be the reason I own guns, but it was fine.
If I could get the hookup, you know, with somebody who just once a week dipped across the border to pick up shit and brought it back and then mailed it to me, oh my God, that's gold. You know, but you have to keep that shit secret.
We'll give you $8 a unit flat rate shipping, but every 200th book is cocaine. Yeah, all done. Done.
You know what? You don't have to tell me that, and I don't have to know that. All right. In fact, it's better for everybody if that's just a hypothetical, and I never hear anything about it.
Okay, we're being flagged right now. It's like cocaine. What?
All right.
We're not talking about smuggling maple syrup across the border. They are not going to give a single fuck.
All right. So, Chad OS or Chatos, I don't know how he wants me to say it, or if it's a he. What's coming for at us next? I like to say Chad OS. It's a robot that runs chat.
God's Teeth,
mm-hmm.
and which is in art production. I'm basically painting the shit out of God's Teeth endlessly every day now. And then another. Shane, you want to talk about anything else?
Oh well, yeah. I mean, there's like a million things. So, the most imminent to be released is going to be Arcant, which I'm awaiting. I'm awaiting proof copies from our not cocaine related courier service to bring it across the border. Hopefully, in the next week or two.
We use a different function for the cocaine.
Right.
Yeah.
And then after that is probably going to be Jack Frost, which is in layout. Actually, no. After that is probably going to be the Labyrinth handout kit, which I
don't think they mean this. I think they mean like new projects. I'm guessing.
You know, I don't care. I don't know Chat OS anything.
See, you make fun of me, but then you want to be me at the same time. That's the.
I don't want to be a thing. I'm just.
I finished writing Language of the Stars. That's a scenario.
Yeah,
it'll come out eventually.
Yeah. Caleb has been completely cool about me eviscerating all of his genius innovations with the Language of the Stars and forcing him to put them in a different document. You know, where.
What I really like is we've welcomed Caleb into the Delta Green creation community, and all of his forays and attempts to get us to engage him with questions have been met with probably don't do that, but just keep writing.
You're doing great.
Yeah.
Do everything totally differently.
These are bad. Be ashamed.
It's great.
It's like all vague. I never said be ashamed. It's all vague feedback followed by, is it done?
Yeah.
That's basically, and Caleb's like, I can't believe this is it. Like, I thought we'd be smoking cigars in a room with leather chairs or something and plotting the future of Delta Green. Instead, it's kind of like seat of your pants. Here, grab this. This is the seat of your pants.
Well, hey, that's not true. Shane told me he hated something I wrote in the last email.
Really?
It was 3 in a row. So
But
that's very specific. That is good feedback.
Let me ease up on that a little bit, because that was not a thing that Caleb invented. Caleb borrowed it from Trail of Cthulhu. So it was Robin Law's problem that I hated. Sorry, Robin. You're awesome. You're amazing. But there's this one graphic design thing that drives me absolutely bananas. And Caleb
man, the money
me.
still spends. It's good. I'll do whatever.
I like watching him become acclimatized. It's kind of like watching an action film where the new guy shows up and all the old guys are like, yeah, you'll see. And then you get there and it's just them all sitting around eating Hardee's burgers or something like that. And Caleb's like, what the fuck? Where's the fire?
It's been getting under my nose for no reason.
Everybody thinks you guys are smart.
Yeah. Ooh, we're just low.
What the hell's going on here?
Okay, so next question. Matt G asks, in handling the game, how can I ride the line of getting the scenario where it needs to go without stomping too much on player agency? So I get this one a lot. There's a couple dozen versions of it in the question. So
yeah, it's really easy. No, I'm just kidding.
Why did you even bother asking that question? Whatever your name was.
That's a joke.
I don't remember your name anymore. That's how banal that question.
It can be really difficult. So the line that's actually being written is different than the line you think is being written, and the line that is actually being written is these player characters are usually agents in a federal agency and would know better than to do the following things that their players do not know better than to do. Like, let's grab the witness and beat the shit out of him in a Motel 6 we're all staying in, for example. And that's a specific example from the last scenario I ran for a bunch of Delta Green players. So the way to ride that, when you don't want the players to blow up and burn themselves in some horrible situation, is to go, as an FBI agent, you know you should not be doing that without covering your bases, because you will be caught. A lot of GMs don't do shit like that. They won't comment. They'll just kind of let the players go down ever tightening rat holes of certain doom that their player characters would know better than to do. So what I try and do is jump in on a high level at those points and go, you're a DEA agent. You understand evidence. You know there are cameras everywhere. You know you were seen with this man within the last 24 hours. If he turns up dead with a bullet in the back of his head, you're going to be among the first people questioned because they saw your car, they can ping your cell phone, all this. And usually
characters are smarter than your players. Yeah.
Well, you make sure they know the risks, and then let them make the choice, right? You don't make the choice for them; you just tell them the risk. I mean, as for like clues, if the players are not picking up the path toward all the awesome things you had in mind, you can make that easier by the famous rule of 3. You always have at least three possible leads into into the awesomeness, and if all else fails and they just are completely skipping it, then then you can basically look for ways to make shit happen to them without it being you telling them what their characters do. Right?
Yes.
So if they've very studiously avoided the half dozen paths, to find the clues that you tried to put them, and therefore they're not getting to the awesome confrontation, then if they're carefully skipping all those, and they are not going to get to the big confrontation, then dump the confrontation on, right? Yeah. And use it as a way to surprise and shock and scare them.
Yeah, all I need for a video game is a ragdoll mechanic. So when I tell people like that, the reason ragdoll mechanics are really hard to program is because everything can happen. Like the arms can break this way or that way, or the neck can go down where the groin used to be, and it can. And so there's like a lot of, but a Delta Green game is about watching your character do some amazing break. It's not about not falling down. Like that amount of agency has to be given up because it's a horror game. But they can die and go insane like any way they want to do it.
Yeah, and you want to encourage choice. You want them to have fun choices. And this is another thing. A lot of players come into Delta Green, and a lot of GMs come into Delta Green thinking that negative outcomes are a bad thing. Negative outcomes, for me, is where most of the fun in Delta Green is being held. I ran control copy recently, and it ended with 2 of the agents being blown to bits by a hand grenade in their car while the bad guy literally walked up and said catch and threw an anti-personnel grenade in there. They both fumbled. It blew up. They're dead. Suddenly there's a huge investigation. And they were like, that was fucking awesome. I didn't even see what happened, But the other thing I'll say is experiment with winging adventures. Come up with the big baddie, come up with 3 or 4 ideas on how to enter, and then just play it. See how it goes. You have to develop, it's like a muscle you develop over time to kind of, you can see when the play at the table's dying down. You want to get it, you want to goose it. So you come up with a way to kind of poke the players, get them to go, goose it more, find a confrontation. And until you kind of wing it, if you're constantly following a book or an idea and just going like, well, they completely missed this scheme, there's no way I can get them back, you're never going to get to the point where you can kind of just throw it out on the table and bring it to life. Visid, the scenario I ran for Shane and Ken Height, I literally just made it up. Like I had 4 notes and went in and ran it. And you get to a point where you can kind of do that, but to get there, you have to kind of mess with really loose ideas. So that would be my recommendation as a GM for Delta Green is try and keep it simple, high level, just run it, bring it to life.
Yeah, I mean you can make that happen also by having a few sort of disconnected, floaty, weird events or encounters that you could insert somewhere as connective tissue if you have to,
Yeah.
and if you can come up with a few of those that you kind of as you're imagining them, think, oh, that's kind of creepy, right? And then watch for ways to put that in, right, as the player's connection to get them back on track without realizing that you're having to scramble because they're being incompetent.
Incompetence is a benefit. It is not negative.
Yeah, again, read Gladio. Agent Maxim said, have you ever had an instance where a throwaway line was latched onto by your players and it ended up being significant to the operation, not because you planned for it, but because the players were so obsessed with it, you had to rewrite the scenario around it? So
I don't think so. There are many one-liners during the games that stick. Speaking of Visid, what was Ken's one-liner? The hand. He goes. Obviously, this is a garden variety handipede. And that just stuck. Or no, what was it? And then he called it something else instantly. He said, or the common velocibear or something like that. And
Right.
People will say stuff that makes people laugh, and it'll be repeated throughout the scenario. But I've never had something stick, like become
Or like where the players have latched on to the wrong thing.
I worry this might be directed at me. This is something that happens at RPPR a lot. They
Why
got
don't you talk
fixated
about this thing, Caleb? You're part of the club.
Yeah.
They got fixated on the parrot and Lover in the Ice. That was just from a random green box generator. For about 45% to 65% of the scenario, they thought this parrot was the thing killing everyone in the town.
Well, that sounds like a benefit. That's
yeah.
awesome.
I just ran I just ran a game called Schemata but it hasn't been posted yet. And at some point, some proto matter thing gets on a chicken nugget, and it revives the pink slime within it. So there is a skitter nugget, but it was biologically just like one thing that they needed to track down, like the larger source of it.
Right.
But they went on a bug hunt for this chicken nugget when it went into the sewers that lasted like dumping diesel into the sewer, just lighting this town's underground on fire to kill this chicken nugget. It was amazing. Yeah. So
Okay, I stand corrected. Apparently, this happens all the time. Just in Caleb's scenario.
Well, I'd say the biggest thing like that comes to mind for me was, and this didn't result in me changing the scenario at all, though. It was just amusing because it happened multiple times in multiple playtests. Was I wrote an adventure called Hourglass, and at the very beginning of the adventure starts. This is not a spoiler. It starts with cell phone footage of some horrible, terrifying, unnatural event, and the first thing the players usually do is track down who took the footage, right? And it's set up so that who took the footage is like this dumbass teenage wannabe influencer, and you can hear him on the footage saying, "Oh, fuck, did you see that? Did you see that? My backers, my followers, whatever, this is gonna blow. That was so crazy." And so like 3 of the play tests that I ran to that adventure, they and this is including at con, people would spend literally an hour and a half just fucking with this kid. I mean, and often even after it became totally obvious he was clueless. He didn't have a thing to offer. He didn't know a thing about anything. They just developed these elaborate schemes to screw with him. I think in theory to like put him on the wrong track, right, and distract him and make sure that he doesn't discover anything else.
I think
the Zoomers are they're chasing the heart of the cosmic mysteries. You gotta chase them off before they just look too deep.
The agents versus raw dog in Hourglass. That's been my most fun.
There's only one I can think of now, and that was years ago, and it was Belial was used as an intro to a scenario. I forget which one, and every time I ran it 3 times, and every time I ran it, it became the Kill Belial game, where they actually managed to blow up his limousine, and he just walked away naked, like he was literally blown like a rag doll out of the limousine, and his clothing was burned off, and this huge gout of flame, and he just got up and kind of walked away nude on the street with this horrible hole in his chest, and everybody was like, "What the fuck?" Like they all lost stand. But yeah, the assassination game for Belial was actually quite fun. That almost kind of became the scenario that Glancy wrote up. The hotel. I forget the name of it, but yeah. Anyway,
holy war.
It doesn't usually happen in
eyes only
my scenarios because I think everybody died first 15 or 20 seconds.
I think way back when Keith Potter and I and the other playtester, I think it was Pat Grindle, we were playtesting AOL through chat rooms with Scott Glancy when he was playtesting Dead Letter Countdown.
Oh yeah.
And we Dead Letter, your agents are investigating this biochemical company out in the middle of. Anyway, we spent so much time like watergating places and sneaking around and with the tradecraft that it's like, he had to work like a hero to actually get us pointed back at back at the really spooky shit.
All right, so I won't ask there's also a least favorite published scenario, but we'll stay nice. So Trekkie140 has asked, what is your favorite published scenario that you haven't written? Someone else.
Me? Convergence.
Cool. What do you like about it?
I'm not saying. No. It was a very. Now it seems trite, but it was not trite when it was written. In fact, it invented all of that kind of.
Mm-hmm.
And it gave me wonderful, dark, horrible, flowering ideas for the Migo. When John kind of first imagined it, it was like a 1-for-1 gray Migo relationship, and it's kind of like a scuba suit, and I just thought it could be so much darker and more evil and weird, and so it gave me. It was like an awakening. It was a wonderful, like, oh fuck, we can do all this shit with this. This is awesome. And I just like the way the scenario is written, and I've run it maybe a half dozen times, and it's always been quite fun. What's your favorite scenario?
Oh, my favorite scenario that I didn't write?
Mm-hmm.
So Dennis already took Convergence, so that makes it tricky. And I'm not going to pick one Dennis wrote, because that's just ass kissing, and he doesn't need that kind of affirmation anymore.
You should, though, because they're all awesome.
They're mostly awesome, and I'm gonna say taking out Convergence and taking out Dennis's adventures. I'm gonna actually say Holy War. Dennis reminded me of it talking about Belial recently. And I worked on that a lot with Scott, so maybe it's kind of cheating. I didn't write it, but I put a lot of work into it as an editor, going back and forth with him. But I really liked the way it turned out. The way that it's this sort of it's this sort of creepy investigation into side stuff surrounding the different cults that comprise the Fate in New York City, and excuse me, and the background of Belial, who's one of the members there, when things go sideways between him and the other members. And so you wind up, the agents wind up pursuing all of that to some secret estate where he just does horrible shit with the goal of protecting him.
Cool. I believe Ross made it for a shotgun scenario contest. I really liked his hypercube scenario. Just because I think it's a really great intro to Delta Green. Because all you have to do is respond to a B&A, and then you get trapped in this labyrinthian hell of one room that you can't escape. That keeps shifting and driving you insane. Yeah. So it is the fastest premise to TPK I've ever read, and I really like it. Yeah. So yeah. But that is it. Your puppet strings are no longer visible, but always present. And we will have a few more questions from Bugging ACell in the future. Thanks for answering questions, guys. Not that you had a choice. So.
No problem.
I'll say you're welcome because I'm contractually obligated.
Yeah. All right. Thanks. Have a good one. Bye.
Bye.